Hello everyone, welcome to the Imprint Explained. And in this series, we're talking about the latest trend or the latest issue that has hit the Indian economy, and that is the Moody's downgrade to India's rating to Baa3. And in this video, we'll discuss what is the reason for this downgrade and the impact of this. This just happened a couple of hours ago. This is on 1st of June. Moody has downgraded India's sovereign rating to Baa3 and says it will be having challenges in the implementation of policies to mitigate the risk of a sustained period of low growth and deteriorating physical position. So this is what has happened. The rating agency talks about the fact India faces the deepest slowdown in 4 decades. So let's try to talk about this in a little more detail now. Now, on 1st of June, Moody's Investor Service downgraded the government's rating, that is the foreign currency and the local currency long-term issuers rating, from Baa2, right, from to Baa3. Now, this is just above the junk, and it said that the outlook remained negative. Now, the latest downgrade reduces India to the lowest investment grade of rating. And remember, Moody has been the most optimistic about India's ratings, right? On the other hand, this brings them in line with the two other major rating agencies of the world, that is S&P and Fitch. So if you see S&P and Fitch, we are at triple B stable, right? Both of them. On the other hand, we got BAA2 stable in 2017, and this was hailed to be one of the great achievements of the Modi government. On November, we got this news that we are again negative. This was the article. These are the various articles in which we were talking about that the corporate tax concessions, etc., have led to this, right? But now we've been downgraded. We are at Baa3. Now, if you think about it, we were at Baa3 even before. So obviously, maybe it doesn't make too much of a difference, but it tells us that yes, we are in trouble. So, what are the reasons for this downgrade? So, four main reasons Moody has taken this reason. First, it's saying we have weak implementation of the economic reforms since 2017. That the kind of reforms that we are having is very, very weak. The GST has been faulty and so on. Relatively low economic growth over a sustained period. That the growth rate actually is low. There is significant deterioration in the physical position, as we talked about. That the 4.59% is the physical deficit suddenly because of the miscalculation on the part of the government, and as the assumption that they thought that we'll have a growth rate of 8.5 this year. Then there is rising stress in India's financial sector. We had NPAs, we had the NBFC crisis, right, and so on. So in November last year, Moody changed the outlook to India's BA rating to negative from stable, and this was because the risks were increasing in every way. The apprehension, obviously, it had in 2019, has come through. Now they have maintained the negative outlook, and we are at Baa3, and we can even go to junk, it seems. Now, what does it say in its official statement? It says the decision to downgrade India's rating reflect Moody's view that the country's policy-making institutions will be challenged in enacting and implementing policies which effectively mitigate the risk of sustained period of relatively low growth. Indirectly, maybe it's saying that our institutions are not independent anymore. RBI is not independent. Significant further deterioration in general government physical position and stresses in financial sector will lead to the RBI and other institutions not being, strong enough to handle this. Now, the question is, what does this negative outlook mean? So, negative outlook may reflect a dominant, mutually reinforcing downside risk from deeper stresses in the economy and the financial system. That there can be, a severe, prolonged erosion in the physical strength in the current projects. Now, Moody has highlighted the structural changes. What are those? So, India has weak infrastructure. We have rigidities in our labor, land and product markets, and we have rising financial sector risks. So this is going to be huge. So basically, negative implies India's rating could go down further, and we could even go to junk status. Now, is the downgrade because of COVID? That is the question that everybody is thinking. So Moody has categorically said that while this downgrade is taking place in the context of the coronavirus pandemic, it is not driven by the impact of the pandemic. It says the pandemic amplifies vulnerability in India's credit profile that were present and building prior to the shock, and which motivated the assignment of a negative outlook last year. So what it's saying is uh, it is the GDP growth down in the Q4. So in the Q4, we did not have COVID in India exactly. We just had 1 week of lockdown. So even if, let's say, that was not the case, this can be pushed to 3.3 max. So still 3.3 for a country like India is very, very poor, right? And the overall year growth rate was around 4.2. So that is the real problem. So why does the downgrade happen? So the downgrade, obviously start the discussion, in November of 17, Moody had upgraded India's rating to Baa2 with a stable outlook. At that time, they felt that effective implementation of key reforms, they were very happy with GST, would strengthen the sovereign's credit profile, right? And there would be increase in institutional and physical strength. But obviously, this was the hopes were belied. Upgrade in 2017. Implementation reforms have been relatively weak and has not resulted in material credit improvements, indicating limited policy effectiveness. So in India, policy making has been ineffective. Uh, and that's been historically true. Implementation wise, we have been very poor. It seems that while policy making, a different person comes and implements, right? And when the time of implementation comes, it is as if that somebody else who doesn't want to implement is implementing. So the low effectiveness of the policy and the resulting low growth momentum has evidence in the sharp deceleration in India's GDP growth. And the provisional estimates were pegged at 4.2, the lowest annual growth rate in a decade. And even these estimates are likely to be revised further down. So basic issues there. Now, poor growth obviously has been made worse by our finances, both center and state level, right? And the central government has failed to meet its physical deficit each year, right? So they have been steadily increasing the government debt. The total government debt is nothing but the debt till the last year and the physical deficit of the current year, right? If you want to understand what is this. According to Moody, even before the outlook, an estimated 72% of GDP in India physical 2019. So the India's government combined debt, that is center and state, was 30 percentage point higher than the BAA median. So basically, even before the government debt was very high, and this number will expected to go up to 84% of GDP just within 2020, thanks to that we have been forced to borrow even more during Corona, and revenues are not going to match up because obviously the economy has to contract this year, right? Now, will it really make a difference? Now, as explained, credit rating obviously are based on the overall health of the economy. So credit rating basically looks at the current account deficit, the physical deficit, the exchange rates. So those kind of things it looks into. The government finances, obviously, if you look at it, are shown in the physical deficit. So FD, physical deficit, and obviously our exports, are seen to be in the current account deficit. Now, because of these, when we look into them, the credit rating agencies basically use these to actually measure us. So our current account deficit, obviously, because of oil has been all-time low. Obviously, we are fine in some ways, but the physical deficit has led to this downgrade. So a rating downgrade means that the bonds that if somebody is investing in Indian bonds, they are more riskier because weaker economic growth and worsening fiscal health undermines a government's ability to pay back. Now, low risk is better because governments and companies of the country raise debts at the lower rate of interest. Does that make a difference to India? Because historically it hasn't. So sovereign does not borrow overseas, so it would not make a difference. India doesn't borrow overseas, so it hardly matters to us. We did have the proposal in but the budget was shot down by the various policymakers, by the RSS, etc. So Indian companies might borrow, and they might have challenges when factoring in the cost. There is also a possibility of other rating agencies like S&P and Fitch following suit, which has to be observed. Whether they will downgrade us from the triple B negative to double B or something like that. Will that happen or not? Double B positive, that is. Right, that is something. Thank you so much for listening. Do subscribe and like. Join our Telegram group, and please do like our channel. Thank you so much.